Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the first two games of these NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics are up 2-0. And before I get into this, I do apologize for not being able to react last week to the games. I was sick, dealing with a cold, and I'm just ready to get back in and talk about some hoops with you guys. So the Boston Celtics look unstoppable. And as a Celtics fan, it's going to end two ways for me. The first way is I'm going to make a video where I admit how I was wrong about the Celtics, because I will admit that I thought they wouldn't be able to finish the job. And it's looking like they're actually going to win Banner 18. There's still a long way to go. They got to go to Dallas and finish the job and make sure they close this out, or it's going to end in another disaster. I'm leaning more towards them finishing it because the defense has been unbelievable. You know, when you're looking at the matchup, it seems like a huge mismatch going on. Boston has depth. You know, you can say Luka's the best player, but outside of Luka, everyone else on the roster between Dallas and Boston has better players. When we're looking at what's happening to Dallas and how Boston is suffocating them, the first thing that really stood out to me was Boston is eliminating the lob threat for Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. That has been huge because if you watch the Wolves and Mavericks series, they were getting lob after lob after lob. And Minnesota couldn't do anything about it. They would run pick and roll, and of course Gafford and Lively would slash the rim, and boom, another dunk. But in this series, it's been a whole lot different. Another important factor that Boston is taking away from Dallas is those corner threes for PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. You see, when you watch the Minnesota series, they had a lot of corner threes available. Dallas was getting whatever they want. But in this series, between the two of them, for the first two games, they have 4 total corner three-point attempts. Haven't made a single one yet. And that's huge because that's how Dallas was generating their offense, and Boston has shut that down. So the two main ways they were getting buckets was lob dunks and corner threes. Daniel Gafford was looking unplayable until game 2. He played well down the stretch. They were running pick and rolls and getting him involved in the offense. But another problem for Dallas is lack of ball movement. Boston is okay with Luka Doncic going one-on-one isolation. They will live with his step-back threes and his fadeaway shots, because here's what's happening. Luka is exerting a lot of his energy on the offensive side of the ball. He's not that good on defense anyways. So if he's exerting all this energy on offense and he has to shoot, right, get to the free throw line, that's going to wear him out. He had 23 points in game 2 in the first half. He had 9 in the second half because he was wearing down. And what Boston is doing is they're saying, hey, Luka, go ahead and score. We will live with you getting all these buckets, but we're going to slow everyone else down. We're going to shut them down. They're not going to be involved with the offense. So what you're seeing is Boston is letting Luka cook on offense, and they're taking away the other factors of the game, whether it's Derek Lively, whether it's PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr. A lot of the shots that PJ Washington had in game 2, he was driving to the rim. He had 1-3 early on in the game, but it wasn't from the corner. So Boston will live with Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington shooting at the top of the key or on the side, not in the corner, because that's where they're making the majority of the three-point shots. So I don't know where Dallas can go from here, because Boston hasn't even hit their stride on the offensive side of the ball. So what they do is they get Luka on a switch where Tatum is just blowing right by him, so Dallas has to collapse the defense, which opens up opportunities for three-point attempts. Or you saw in game 2 where Jrue Holiday got in the paint, Derek White had a mid-range shot, so when the threes weren't falling, Boston was still getting in the paint and getting those layups, and Tatum was distributing the ball, and it was really good to see from Tatum. And again, another point that doesn't get talked about enough is Joe Mazzulla's timeouts in game 2 were so critical. So when Kyrie Irving made it 90-83, Horford was in at the time. So Joe Mazzulla called timeout, brought in Porzingis. So he came in for a 3 or 4 minute spurt. And then when Dallas cut it to 97-89, Joe Mazzulla called another timeout. Why those timeouts were so critical? Because it stopped Dallas' momentum. He never allowed Dallas to go on a big run, which slowed things down. And then he brought in Al Horford because he noticed Porzingis was a little gimpy and Boston was able to close the deal. Another important factor, what I loved about Boston, is they never overreacted to Dallas' strong start. So when Dallas was up 13-6, Boston was blocking shots. They were getting steals. Even though they were sluggish on offense, they didn't overreact to when Luka was on fire. Yes, he had his 23 points in the first half, but they never really got out of sync. They just stayed the course. And that's been a big part of their success this year. Obviously, in my opinion, it's looking like the Celtics are a different team, especially in clutch situations. You saw down the stretch, Dallas went on the run. And what happens? You saw Derek White and Jaylen Brown go after PJ Washington with the block. And then on the other end, Tatum could have gone hero ball and shot a step back three. He didn't do that. Jaylen Brown got the ball, drove to the basket, got a layup. And that was huge for Boston. So you look at the differences of what's happening here, and it seems like this series is going to end in 5 games or maybe a sweep. We'll see how Dallas comes out in game 3. They started strong in game 2, and it didn't matter. We also have to consider Boston's probably going to shoot the 3 ball better in game 3, no matter what Dallas does. The only way I see Dallas making this tougher on Boston is if they change up their entire rotation. So what I mean by that is I would probably play Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington at the 4 and 5. Yeah, that does limit them on the center position, but if they were to play faster, I think that could help them out. But the problem is Dallas doesn't play a fast-paced offense like Indiana. They slow the ball down. Luka wants to go isolation, shoot a step backs, and eventually that's just going to kill them. And then you have to wonder, is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum going to go off for 60 combined points? I could see that happening. So let's say Kyrie does better in Dallas. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Tatum starts finishing better at the rim. Jaylen Brown starts cooking as well. And all of a sudden, it's Kyrie and Luka versus Jaylen and Jason. But the problem is the third option for Boston is better than Dallas's third option. So that's going to come into play here. So we'll see what happens. I don't know what Dallas can do at this point to really make this a series. It's difficult to envision them pushing this to 6 games. You never know because, again, I have one question about Boston is, do they have the killer instinct? Like, can they really finish this job? It's what I've been waiting for, and we'll see if it actually comes to fruition. Again, I'm going to make a video. If I'm wrong about Boston, I will be happily wrong about my team. Again, I've seen this for 2 years from them. I have to give them a ton of credit because defensively, they're on a different level. And knowing they are 48 minutes away from taking full control of the series and knowing they're 2 wins away from winning the championship, I don't know what Dallas is going to do. It's going to be tough, especially if Jaylen and Jason go off in game 3. And even if Luka does his heroics, it's not going to matter. Also, people are saying, Kyrie's got to do better. Well, let's think about this. Kyrie played in Boston with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They know his tendencies really well. They know how to guard him. They guarded him against Brooklyn, and again, they locked Brooklyn up as well. Not to say they're locking up Luka, but 9 points in the second half. He's only scored 6 total points in the fourth quarter. Boston's wearing him down, and they're playing right into their hands. The most important part for the Celtics is stay hungry. Act like you're down 0-2. I love what Jaylen Brown said about, we have to come into Dallas like we're down 0-2. And I love the mentality that Boston is showing. They're focused. They're not getting distracted by the media. Jason Kidd tried to say, Jaylen Brown is better than Jason Tatum. Tried to, bring some type of distraction between the two. That didn't work. And the media obviously has their own opinions. They're just locked in. And, it's going to be hard to see Dallas pull this out. I don't see it happening. So we'll see if I'm right about that. I have a gut feeling that Boston is probably going to sweep them because the mismatches are just ridiculous. Luka on defense is not good. It's obvious. And that's my thoughts on this series so far. We'll see if Dallas has some type of trick up their sleeve. I think the only way they can keep this really competitive is if they play Derek Jones Jr. at the 5. You run PJ Washington, you get Dante Exum involved, and play I think it's JJ Hardy a little bit more. Again, you're taking a risk there because now your front court's smaller, which opens up offensive rebounding, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum score more in the paint. And I don't know what Luka can do because every time they put Luka on Brown, Tatum, or somebody else, they're just driving right past him, just blowing by him. So it's going to be hard for Dallas at this point. But you never know. Adjustments do happen. So I do want to give respect to Dallas. They're in the NBA Finals for a reason. But it's looking pretty grim right now. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Thanks for sticking to the end. Love to hear your thoughts on how this series is going to turn out. Do you think Boston's going to end up sweeping them? Or is Dallas going to make this a series? Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll catch you in the next one.